Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Captain. And today I'm going to be joined by Sara Wegwitz from Victoria, British Columbia. And I had the luxury of meeting Sara back in November, I think it was November, at the Anthony Robbins Unleash the Power Within workshop or seminar. And Sara's a good friend of somebody else I interviewed, Penny Zinker, and that's how I met Sara. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sara, and then I'm sure she can expand on that. But she was a registered nurse with a niche in mental fitness. And I know mental fitness now is becoming a very big thing because people are having to toughen up a little bit. She also specializes in resiliency training, performance coaching, and the best way to think about Sara is a personal trainer for the mind. She's worked with some gold medalist athletes, and I think it was rowing, is that correct? Paddling in Canada, and they went on to win a gold medal in Australia in competition.
Yeah, number of medals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So her client base includes a lot of variety of different people, from first responders, leaders and professionals, athletes. She works with people in the nonprofit sectors. And she's really excited about 2017 and what that's going to look like for her with her business. She's got something called the Mental Fitness Boot Camp coming up, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So, Sara, welcome. And first things first, do you have your coffee cup?
Sure do.
Coffee with the Captain.
Hey. Thanks for having me, James.
Welcome, matey.
No. Thank you.
Honored to have you aboard. So we're both on the West Coast. You were telling me that Victoria, British Columbia is kind of like California in a way.
Yeah, it's the nickname, I guess, would be that we're the California equivalent in Canada. So, but that's used loosely because, like I was mentioning, it's cold and wet and super rainy right now. So.
Yeah, I was actually having a visualization of like that old show that used to be on TV with Hasselhoff. Where he's a lifeguard, and then
Baywatch, I think is
Baywatch and Babes on the Beach. Is it kind of like that?
I'm gonna say no. Yeah.
Is there?
No, our beaches aren't as nice. There's lots of beautiful rocks and lots of driftwood. Yeah, sandy beaches, not quite.
Okay.
Maybe further up the coast a little bit.
Just to make that distinction, but for me, the further I get away from California, the better I feel. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. No,
okay.
I love it I love San Diego. I love that whole part of the world. But quite honestly, the taxes, that's what it was, the taxes. I didn't like that at all. So, and it's a little bit busy in Orange County if you've ever drove through there. Used to be like, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you had a hard time getting through traffic. Now I think it's like 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you don't have that in Victoria, do you?
No, it's a beautiful city. I mean, I think for any of your viewers, if you've never come up, you must. The Pacific Northwest is the place to be, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city on Vancouver Island. And I was born and raised here. One of the very few. I've lived elsewhere. Kind of was a boomerang for a number of years, and yet this is home. This is home for me. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah, you guys got to come check it out.
Now, how far is that from? Is it Richmond or Richland?
Yeah, Richmond, Vancouver.
Yes.
So it's just an hour and 35-minute ferry ride through all the beautiful Gulf Islands. So even having that experience is well worth the time and effort to do as well.
Yes, I've been up that far. Or Steveston, I think, was the other city. And
yeah.
I actually did a boat delivery out of there at one time in my life. So.
No kidding.
So yeah, it's beautiful. And then a lot of people come from, just so people understand this, a lot of people will come from that part of the world and go down to Bellingham, Washington to shop.
Yes, that can be, for some, that's a very important aspect. And so being able to hop across that way, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm not necessarily for me, but for others, absolutely.
I was amazed by that.
Yeah.
That's about all I know about.
Oh.
But I need to come up and visit. and
Yeah,
learn a lot
love it.
more. So your company is called Tailor Making Health.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How'd you start the business?
Absolutely. So, as with anything in healthcare, one size does not fit all. And actually, it's kind of an interesting story behind how I came up with the name. My mom actually designed gowns and dresses and was quite a tailor and seamstress in her time. And we always talked about that, how it's really important for people to understand that one size fit all programs, be it coaching, training, or workshops, they don't work. And I think when it comes to mental fitness and resiliency, especially with all the mental health challenges in workplaces nowadays, we've got these well-intentioned leaders who are trying to shove a square peg in a round hole by way of these one size fits all programs. And they're just not getting the results and the progress that they want, because a tailored approach is always necessary. So being able to look at people and see them for who they are and understand that your people aren't different from you, they're different like you. And that's a big idea I help organizations especially get their head around. And so again, that's why having a tailored approach is so necessary.
Okay, and one of the things you specialize is helping people get past anxiety. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yes. So I specialize in helping get to the root cause of what holds individuals and teams of people back from creating the results and progress that they want. And we typically will zero in on one specific area to focus on, and that will give us the greatest amount of results or progress, again, be it with an individual or bigger group of people, and getting to that root cause. So it might be fear, it might be anxiety and worry and all those other roommates that fear has, or it just might be a confidence block or some old story that's getting in the way. And I always use I use an interesting analogy for any of the techie people out there. None of us are wrong or broken. We're just running around with old, outdated programming. So it's kind of like if you want to be the iPhone 7, and yet you're still running on iPhone 4 technology, where every command clogs up the system and drives you crazy, you're never going to get there. So
wait, I have an iPhone 4.
Oh, does that happen?
No, I'm kidding.
No.
I actually still own one. It's in a box.
Oh, okay.
That's a great metaphor, though.
Yeah, so it's just about getting in and retiring and getting rid of the old stories, the old unfounded, unproductive beliefs that are getting in the way of what people really want to create for themselves in their life.
Now, well, there's a lot of people doing that kind of work, and I actually do talk about that as well with my clients, because that's, I think everybody is starting to realize that there was a heck of a lot of programming going on. And so what differentiates you with the type of work you're doing from, say, your average life coach or somebody that's out there doing similar work?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, it's having that niche in mental fitness and resiliency training where I blend my background of being a registered nurse. So I still am a registered nurse. And I blend my health background in understanding anatomy and physiology, taking the science and blending it with the art of coaching and helping people get, like I said, right to the root cause of that in a very fast and sustainable way. So it's being able to, again, leverage that training to zero in on those specific areas to really get people moving further faster. So a lot of the times my clients will achieve their results in less than 3 months. And because for me, feeling like we're going on, my business model isn't to have somebody come see me for years and years and years. It's like, no, what do we need to do? Where are you? Identify where you want to go, and then be able to find the root cause of things that might be getting in the way while you're creating more of what it is that you want in your life. And so it's, again, just to narrow that down, is to just zero in on what might be hiding in your blind spot and what's the fastest way that we can remove it or understand it and get you moving further faster.
Okay.
So it's that's where that NLP comes in handy, and blending that with the coaching.
So interesting you bring up NLP, because I know that you are well rehearsed in that, and that you've studied under a guy named Steve Linder in Portland. Isn't that true?
Yeah, yes. And Steve is a master trainer.
Yeah, and you were telling me about that before the call, and I've been through NLP training as well, and I'm sure I don't know anywhere near as much as you, but I want to debunk one thing quickly about the beliefs around NLP, because there's so many people, there's a lot of people that relate that with woo-woo, or they relate it with that they don't want to get programmed. And the truth of the matter is, we're all programmed already, and if anything else, NLP is deprogramming somebody. So tell me a little bit about your course and what that was like for you.
With the training with Steve Linder?
Yes.
Yeah. That was, it's hard to even articulate. It was an incredibly enriching program where you got to unpack and get the behind the scenes of the neuroscience of what happens in our minds, and how to unprogram some of that old programming. And how that old programming shows up is through all of the stories we tell ourselves for why we don't have what we want to most have in our lives. All of the too excuses: too busy, too tired, too old, too young, too cold, too wet, whatever, right? And really looking at reassigning and reattaching new meanings that support an emerging identity of who we want to be. And the analogy that I love to use with people is that, none of us are wrong or broken. We're just simply going around with some old, outdated programming or stories that are running the show that no longer serve us anymore. So the analogy is for all you techies out there, it's like you really want to be the iPhone 7, and yet you're still running on iPhone 4 technology. Or as like CeeLo Green said in his song, it's like you want the Xbox or something along those lines, and all I am is an Atari, right? It's like we've got old, outdated programming that just doesn't work in where we are in our lives.
Well, and I know for a fact that a lot of what you see on television and commercials is NLP work as well, and it's basically suggestion, and people don't even know that, but they'll point out things that they'll state the problem, and then it goes right into the solution part of that. But then the question's asked, how long do you want to stay in that way of life? Or so something to that extent. And one thing comes to mind for me, a matter of fact, I just saw this yesterday, it was a commercial about this new pharmaceutical drug. And these commercials cracked me up because this was a weight loss drug, but it wasn't for everybody. And so I was curious right off the bat, who cannot have this drug, or why isn't it for everybody? And one of the first side effects they talk about is possible suicide in teenagers.
Wow.
So obviously we need to scratch those off the list. Then it goes into some other things: liver failure, seizure, possible long-term, brain. I don't know. It was endless what they did. But with that said, isn't that something that, you being a nurse, what do you think about when you see that?
Well, it's interesting because I think when I used to work in ICU, those of us in critical care had a really interesting analogy, and we would say that healthcare, or sick care really, if we're really honest with ourselves, is like a river. And those of us in critical care are standing at the river's edge just before the falls, just before people go over and die, essentially. And we're using medical equivalents of branches and life rings and the rest of them to try and save people. And what's happened is that nobody has thought that we never sit back and say, what's putting these people in this river of bad habits in the first place, or a river of bad health? We never look up and think the solution's at the top of the river, where it's an easy, comfortable little stream, and looking at things from a preventative, proactive lens. And I think as society, especially Western society, we've been conditioned, we've been programmed, essentially, to look for the quick fixes. We are essentially quick fix addicts. Mm-hmm. So we don't even begin to look for solutions within ourselves to help what ails us. So we're always looking to the doctors to get the quick fix medication. Right. The medication just masks symptoms, and that doesn't necessarily get to the root cause of what's ailing us. So that's why I love with coaching and using a whole bunch of different modalities is helping people look at things from that other end of the spectrum, that proactive, preventative lens, to see that resiliency is within all of us, and those skills, getting the owner's manual back for your mind, it's all within us. We just have temporary amnesia. We forget just how resourceful and resilient that we really are. And so how can we switch that back on for people and to help them feel more empowered and confident in moving forward?
And that,
so yeah, that's my take on it, is, again, we've just been conditioned to be quick fix addicts.
and the unleash your power, the power within, I know the last day was very well dedicated towards that message of what are we eating, how does that affect our life?
Yeah.
And man, I'll tell you, after I saw some of the things I saw at that event, or on that last day of that event, and I really recommend people go to that event if they get a chance.
Agreed.
To learn some of the things that I took away, is that we're really being fed a lot of food that it has the USDA label on it in the States here, and we just naturally assume that that's healthy because we trust the government. But in fact, there's a lot of stuff in that food, and again, it's a belief, and we're raised and we're conditioned to think a certain way. I know for a fact that, I've lost 12 pounds since that event, and that was
wow. There you go.
And probably could have lost more had the holidays not come through. But I know going through the holidays, I was a lot more disciplined than I normally would have been. I still drank a lot of wine and that kind of thing, but did not eat cookies.
Okay, got it. And so what would you say were your habits that you dusted off or tweaked on a little bit that enabled you to lose those 12 pounds?
Well, number one, I started doing I started getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I started to be a lot more physical. I'm doing 3 spin classes a week. I'm doing a lot of the things that I know I should be doing, but I wasn't doing.
Got it.
And one of the main things I think that's really catapulted this for me was the breathing exercises I started doing after that event. When I sit down in the morning, doing that priming exercise, and I'll put the link on the screen if somebody wants to go check that out, on how to find the priming exercise, which is basically, it's Tony Robbins will walk you through that. And I choose my own music now, and I'm doing it on my own basically now. And it's not a big deal. You just basically do the breathing exercise. But what that does is it does actually get you up and moving a little bit, because I think it's more psychological than anything. That's how I feel about it, is that just that, okay, I'm going to prime myself to move forward with my goals and do the things I want to do to achieve the goals I have, which my goals are pretty rigid right now. I mean, I want to, by the middle of January, get to 13% body fat, and that's for, I'm 57 years old. To do that, I have to put a little extra effort into it, I found out, because it's not going away like it used to. So that's enough about me, though. This is your interview.
Oh.
But yeah, so I want to know from you, when you're talking to these athletes, better yet, if somebody's listening to this call and they're hearing something that you're saying that's really resonating with them, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Great question. Well, I think visiting my website, I've got a few resources on my website, which is Tailor Making Health. And I know you're going to put the link.
Oh, that's amazing. It's below. Showing up right below you right now. It's almost
the magic of podcasting, broadcasting.
It's almost like it's a miracle. Can you see it?
There it is. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I know. It's amazing. It happens every time.
Oh, it is. It's just like that. It's magic. Yeah. To visit my website, shoot me an email if you have a specific question. Alternatively, those of you who are on Facebook, go ahead and like Tailor Making Health. I often will put quotes, inspiring videos, things that I'm learning, and some of my blog posts as well. So that's also another great resource for folks. And then just contact me if you want to do group coaching or personal individualized coaching as well. I'm happy to do a discovery session with you to see if we're a fit and see what we can create for you.
And you have something coming up probably the latter part of January, it looks like, Mental Fitness Boot Camp.
Yeah.
And they can find that on your website as well?
So that's happening in person in Victoria.
Okay.
If you're interested, that's something I'm going to be putting online in the probably second quarter of this year, the new year coming up. So if you're interested and want to know more when that drops, I can let you know when that happens. And again, if there's a group of you who are interested in doing some group coaching, that's a really great way to tap into the wisdom of a group and help you move further faster at the fraction of a cost of private coaching. So you still get all the benefits of private coaching, some workshop content, and the support of an amazing small group of people, which is really cool. So I've got 2 groups that are already starting, full cohorts starting in January. So if anyone's interested and has a group of friends or colleagues that they're working with, that's how I can serve you as well.
Okay. Now, you're going to have some of your people watching this video as well, so the people that live locally around you need to get there, right?
Absolutely. And likewise, for people who are tuning in who already know me and work with me, James, how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, well, thank you.
So can you make your website magically appear?
Well, first of all, I'd like them to subscribe to the YouTube channel that they're watching this on. That's the big conundrum in my life is there's that big red button that says subscribe up at the upper right-hand corner of the screen. If you see that right now, all you need to do is drag your cursor over there and click it, because what you're going to get is a lot more interviews like this with very talented people, authors, speakers, coaches, different people that are making a difference in the world. And I am a speaker, and I would love to come up to Canada to speak at any organization or corporation. And what I talk about, just cheap plug for myself here, primarily is a lot about what you're talking about, but I use sea stories as a captain of 25 years and use those as metaphors, because you talked about something about being 1 degree off. When you're 1 degree off, when you're heading on a big journey and your destination is 1,500 miles offshore, if you're 1 degree off or 2 degrees off of that course, there's a very good chance you're not going to end up where you want to be. As a matter of fact, you'll be hundreds of miles away from that destination. And a lot of people don't think about this, but one of the root words for destination is destiny. So I use a lot of metaphors like that. With the ocean has a ton of metaphors. So I love talking, as you can tell. So with that said, any opportunity like that, I'd love to hear about it. So, but I just want to say this about you, because I've known you for a short while, and I know there's a life coach or there's a coach on just about every corner.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, most people know somebody in their family, somebody knows somebody. The thing that I liked about Sara the most, and I think this is really important, is that we can have all the coaching training we want in the world, but you have to have somebody that's really compassionate, that has knowledge, that cares about you. And I think you can tell just by watching Sara that there's something about Sara that you exude compassion. You being a nurse, and there is a real, that's my takeaway from meeting you and getting to know you, is that when you're a caregiver and you're a nurse and you're somebody that's really compassionate about helping people, that's one of the biggest things, that if you're going to have an effective experience with a coach, that's one of the core elements that person needs to have. And if they don't have that, and you've got that, my friend.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That means a lot. And yeah, that's one of my core values that I bring to all that I do. So I appreciate that you were able to pick up on that. So thank you. That really means a lot. Thank you.
And for my friends down here in this area, the people that know me that are watching this, and other people that are starting to catch on to the channel, is there a chance that you might do live streaming or a webinar as well, that if they can't make it up there, is that something we can do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, that's coming attractions. 2017 is my theme for this year. Actually, I'm going to spin this interview, if you don't mind. I'll just explain. I feel like 2017, the 3 words I'm going to look back and describe 2017 it was bold and expansive. And so I'm going to turn the tables to you now, James, and ask you, suppose for a moment that you and I are meeting again December, 29th, 2017, and as you look back, what are the 3 words you're going to use to describe your year? Oh, and they're back.
It's a bell.
I think that's a sign.
I would say, to answer your question, is that dynamic,
Okay.
unbelievable,
Cool.
and relief.
Ooh, there's some energy behind that one.
Relief just seems to jump out there. I don't know where it came from.
Right on. Well, I'll look forward to seeing how obviously we'll continue to stay connected and see what unfolds. And for any of the people who are tuning in, ask those questions. That question: what 3 words will you use to describe 2017? Because the words that you choose will set the intention of how you want to finish up 2016 and move forward into 2017. So
very good.
Dynamic, unbelievable, and relief.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, sounds great. You have a great afternoon, and it's been great talking to you as always.
Likewise.
And again, I'll put your information up at the end of this if somebody missed it, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Likewise. And have a happy, happy New Year.
Happy
Yay!
New Year, everybody.
Yes, everyone.
And tell your friends to subscribe to this channel.
Yes. Do it. Do it now.
Do it now. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks. Take care, James. Bye-bye.